Hello and welcome to Long Distance Listening. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Nate.
Welcome to our Charlie Martin episode, where we're going to be talking about Charlie Martin's debut album, Imaginary People. If you are not familiar with Charlie Martin, he is one of the two-headed monster that is Hovvdy, and this is his side project, and it's a great record, and we're able to talk to Charlie today about the record. We have some general questions for him, and then we do go track by track through the record. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to Imaginary People before, we would suggest maybe give it a listen before the podcast. But there will be song clips here and there to kind of let you know what stuff's like as we go track by track. So, Nate, are you ready for our interview with Charlie Martin?
Yes, sir.
All right, today we have the pleasure of having Charlie Martin with us as we'll be discussing and going track by track through his recently released phenomenal debut album, Imaginary People. Charlie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast to talk about your solo project and the new record.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. Glad to be here.
That's so cool that you're here with us. We're very appreciative. So one thing we like to do is start out with this icebreaker. Full disclosure, it's mainly because we're really awkward and not that fun to talk to, and it's a way of making us feel more like fun and cool and stuff.
All right.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask this or that questions, and same with Andrew. And you can be very short, or you can go into detail if something strikes a chord with you, if you're really passionate about it. We have a few questions. So first off, pancakes or waffles?
Oof. I say pancakes. I'm big on the banana pancake life.
Nice.
Yeah. Banana pancake. I mean, those are good. Good choice.
Yeah, we make them at the house. It's a thing every once in a while.
Nice. All right. So you're at a movie. Do you get candy or popcorn?
Ooh, I'm kind of a weirdo, and I almost never get anything at the movie.
A weirdo or someone who's frugal and does not like to spend like $30 on candy and popcorn.
Yeah, but I would probably go for, it would just depend, you know, on the mood. I love both.
So baseball parks or national parks?
Oh, baseball parks all day.
That was kind of a layup.
I got a baseball game tomorrow.
Yes. Ooh. What type of league are you in?
It's like a Sandlot league. I just joined it. My friend Grady peer pressured me into it. I was like, man, there's too much baggage with baseball. But finally, I got back out there. It feels good.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Ocean or mountains?
Go ocean. Yeah.
Nice. Ocean's 11. Oh, sorry.
I said I love the view. It's always so amazing.
That's true.
Keeps going.
Spring or fall?
That's tough. Probably spring. But in Texas, you know the heat is coming in the springtime. But yeah, I like the spring. They're both good. These are good questions.
Well, this one might take more I don't know, thinking about. Honesty or others' feelings?
Damn. I would say probably others' feelings. Like I kind of am a, people pleaser.
Yeah.
I like to be able to put myself in positions where, being honest does make people feel good.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes there's a choice.
Yeah,
definitely. Reading or writing?
I would have to say writing, at least in the context of like writing music. I don't really write anything other than songs, but I love to read, but I go so slow. It takes me so long to read a book.
Recording or playing live?
Probably recording. That's kind of the craft that I feel like me and also Will and Hovvdy, like that's kind of our thing. We've always like loved making records, and playing live is, you can't beat it, but it's not as easy, you know.
It's funny
For me.
I think a testament to how much you love recording is the fact that during a lot of our recent interviews, it's been like a very hard question because people are like, man, I love recording, but like we haven't been out, we haven't played shows, so I really want to play shows. And I'm sure you're feeling that. But it like you were still like right off the bat, you're like, recording, like, which is even with all the lack of live shows, you still, I mean, it seems like recording is that main passion.
Yeah, tried and true, you know, it's always there for me.
So this might be a tough one for you, and this is one of those, like, we have 2 questions left for this. You don't need to answer this if you don't want to. Now 3 options: taster, cranberry, or heavy lifter.
Heavy lifter for sure.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that's our best one, but the next one is definitely our best one. But yeah, I like to listen to, I'm proud of all of them, but you know, we learned a lot from taster to heavy lifter, kind of in like every you know, part of the process. I think we got a lot better, so I'm proud of that one.
All right, this is our final question. We end every interview with this question. I am from Philly, Nate is from Boston, so we just want you to decide, Boston or Philly.
Oh, Philly.
Oh,
Philly's tight. I like Philly. We have had some like friends. We went there like in the early days. Always had good shows. Like, it's a crazy scene there. I've always been pretty impressed with this, with just the like the vibrant like DIY scene in Philly.
Yeah, probably because Andrew isn't a part of that.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
I'm just hurt. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I love Boston though. Honestly, we have better shows in Boston, but I just think Philly's a little bit cooler.
Yeah, I feel you.
There we go.
You're a real diplomat. You are worried about my feelings, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, moving forward, for those of you who don't know, Charlie, you're in the band called Hovvdy, and you're in that band with your friend Will Taylor. So what inspired this solo project, and how was the writing process been different compared to writing with Will?
Yeah, so like, I don't know how many people know this, but me and Will, we work a lot separately. In terms of like songwriting, especially, we make the records together, but really from the very beginning, like, I've probably told this before, but like the way the band started was like, I had, you know, I had just started writing songs. I had like 4 or 5 songs I was working on, kind of just like for a solo project, because I was playing drums in another band. So I was starting to like sing and write songs on the side, and I met Will, and he had like a real similar batch of songs, and we kind of were he was also playing drums in another band, and we kind of hit it off, but like we just merge our songs together, and it just happens to like feel cohesive, which is really cool. So for to answer your question, like for my record, you know, for each Hovvdy record, we'll each write 10 or so songs. So like there's always a handful that like I have for the Hovvdy record that I love, but there's just not like room, you know? And so you just like shelve them.
Yeah.
And in the past, I kind of figured they would maybe like make the next Hovvdy record or something, but we're always writing and we're always making new stuff and getting better. So like, you know, my record's kind of a mixture of stuff that I had kind of stowed away for a few years, along with some stuff I kind of decided like, I want to do this. I was writing a lot, had, you know, some time on my hands like early 2020, and just like I had like 20 songs that I was looking at and just like chopped it down to 13. And that's the record.
To be honest, even though I knew kind of that writing process, it
Mhm.
never once occurred to me that these could have been written for Howdy. They feel so much like this album, like it's a very
Cool.
cohesive album, and I'm just really impressed that you were able to have this cohesive of an album, kind of maybe spawn from some Howdy stuff that didn't make Howdy's albums. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. Like I think that, something like really becomes like a Howdy song. I put that in quotes when like, we get in the studio together
Yeah.
and we really kind of like finish the like really create that final product together,
Yeah.
all in like the same breath. Whereas for my record, it was just me and my buddy Evan Kaspar who like recorded it with me, and yeah, we just kind of naturally came on a whole different sound, I think,
Yeah.
which was really exciting.
Yeah. I did want to touch a little bit on the recording of this album. You've tended to take a minimalist approach when recording Howdy's records through Runner and I'm Sorry, hit
Wait,
those
wait.
hit a little bit differently.
Yeah. Sorry. I thought you said through and not though. Yeah.
Oh,
My
sorry.
bad.
Maybe I did. But yeah, in the past, you mainly recorded in home studios. So for this record, was it a similar approach?
Yeah, so I think I was recording with like a proper like engineer, my buddy Evan, which we did for the Howdy stuff. We did do Heavy Lifter with Ben, and he's a great engineer, producer, mixer. So that was like that first step towards like less DIY.
Yeah.
And then with Runner and I'm Sorry, we worked with Sarlo, who produced it in his studio. So like been sort of moving in the direction of like, at least having somewhat of like a hybrid approach to recording.
Yeah.
And my record definitely was that way. We went out to Mississippi where my wife's mom lives, and me and Evan went out there and we kind of set up like a home studio there. And then we did the other half of it at Estuary Recording here in Austin, which is like a real proper studio. And we mixed it in a studio, which was super fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, different approach for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So your song structures are, I mean, the songs themselves from like when you just listen, you're not really paying attention. They feel very simple, but the song structures are so creative and so honestly, like a lot of songs, I'm like, I've never seen a structure like this. They're very unique, very foreign to me a lot of the times. And I love them so much. How intentional are you about the song structures and making them different? Or is that something that just you kind of go into a song and whatever comes out is what comes out?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's nothing intentional about it, or like I just like, try to I definitely work with some limitations. Like I only know how to play guitar in open tuning. I play an open E.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, and I end up writing a lot on guitar. So just like finding like, if I find I've been playing in that tuning since like, I don't know, 2011 when I started playing guitar maybe. And so like, and I've always told myself as soon as I like run out of ideas or like can't find a new chord, I'll try to learn standard. But like, I just keep coming up with like something that's slightly fresh to me. And like pretty much every time I come up with something like that, like a new chord or a new progression, I just like, that's a song. And I don't know, I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to like make something that's like, really impressive from like a songwriting approach, or like like I don't know how to use a bridge. Like I might have had a bridge before, but like I don't really know. So like, yeah, like I think a lot of the time, this is kind of a funny like anecdote, but that song Swirl, I kind of a good example of like leaning into just like your gut when you want something to be really simple. I actually brought that song to a session in LA with Sarlo when we were recording Runner. And I played it for him, and he was like, I like it. He's like, it just needs something. Like, it just needs like another part or something. And I was like, all right, cool. And I just like took it home, and like, because I just disagreed. I Sarlo is like honestly the greatest. Like, he's so smart and so good. But like, sometimes if it just feels good to just make it like, chorus or like instrumental, verse, chorus, verse, instrumental, that's it. Like, you should trust that.
Yeah.
I think just like having confidence in yourself is a theme, definitely a bit on the record. Like, we'll talk about September and stuff, but
yeah,
it's like, it's really tough when you're like receiving criticism, which is going to help you potentially grow and learn, but also holding tight to your convictions. Like, no, I feel this is my song and I feel strongly about this. It's tough because I'm sure a lot of artists feel like they need to change stuff to appease people, or they're kind of get pushed around, but having that conviction, I think, is important. At the end of the day, it's your voice. For sure.
Well, I think it worked out because I actually took his advice and applied it to Runner. And it was actually that after getting that advice, I wrote the last hook, the like call me a runner part. Like, that whole like last section I wrote. He doesn't know this, but I like literally like left the room. I was like, man, like feeling like kind of, second guessing myself. And I was like, Swirl is good, but like maybe Runner needs something else. Like, that's probably, so yeah, I try to be open to like collaboration, but I do think, it's a good idea to like believe in yourself if what you got feels good to you,
Yeah. So with the title for this album being Imaginary People, it's impossible not to notice, even from song titles, especially within the songs, use of people's names on the record, stories involving those names, and repeated characters. Well, really the main repeated character is Mr. Heavy. Is this a concept record to you? And if so, are you willing to add any context to that or any background? Yeah.
So honestly, it kind of came like, I would say it became like a loot. Like, I definitely don't see it as a concept record in the way that like some true concept records are. But I was maybe like half to 3/4 of the way of making the record, of like writing, getting the songs and deciding on the songs. And I did notice I just happened to like be writing in this style, like centering on characters that are like mostly fictional. And then, and like all the song names were like the character, and I was like, and then I just like had this sort of like aha moment when I thought of the name Imaginary People with like all the names, and I was like, this feels great. But yeah, I kind of like stumbled into it being a little bit of a concept record. Yeah.
So how was the process of track listing the record? Does the final product look similar to how you envisioned it early on, or was there a lot of shifting around going on?
Yeah, I think there was a ton of shifting around. I don't really remember exactly how many like iterations, but I was definitely like wrestling with it, because that was the main challenge. Doing a solo record was like, 13 songs, and it's like just me and my songs, like my voice the whole time. So like, how can I make this dynamic and exciting? And so I chipped away at it for a while, have some like close friends I was sharing with, getting their feedback and stuff.
Another thing that I've noticed is that almost all of Hovvdy's song titles are only one word, and that approach seems to kind of spill over onto the side project as well. So is that an intentional thing for you, or is that just kind of what happened? And is there any reason that you like one word song titles?
Yeah, I've always liked one word song, especially the way they look in like a track list. I think is cool. Or just like some sort of consistency, like aesthetically. I think is sort of something I lean towards, whether or not I'm like really trying to. But yeah, usually like when I'm naming a song, or just kind of like look through the lyrics and sometimes pick out the word that feels like the strongest visually, and like, you know, and sometimes it has nothing. Sometimes it's not a lyric and it's just a word that I think, you know, describes the music. But and sometimes it's super hard, honestly.
Yeah.
So the artwork for the record's incredible, done by Madeline Dowd. What was the process of choosing the artwork for the record?
Yeah, it was kind of went through a few different like iterations. I like initially was planning on it maybe being like a portrait. I had a different artist in mind to maybe do like a portrait of me. And then the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea of it being centered on like not a character that represents me. And then I started actually like working on, like I started drawing a little bit myself. This was when like we had that crazy winter storm in Texas.
Yeah.
And my wife was out of town. She was stuck in Mississippi, couldn't get back here. So I was just like here weathering the storm. Fortunately, we like kept power and everything, but
awesome.
It was super scary. And I was just like hunkered here, like trying to like draw my album art. And it was really like a struggle. And then I realized that like I could just call Maddie and because we've been friends forever, and she's been a fan of my music and likewise for many years. So yeah, it was funny. I don't know how I didn't think about it until that moment, and then I just gave her a call and I told her I wanted to base the art on this character of like Mr. Hovvdy. So yeah, that's him. I don't know. It seems like some kids like already know that character is Mr. Hovvdy, but I think that's the first time I've ever told anybody.
Yeah. It's funny, as you were explaining, I was like, is this going to be Mr. Hovvdy?
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about it until you were talking, and then you confirmed it. So interesting. I'm sure even though that adds a lot of insight, it probably adds a lot of questions as well. But yeah. So lastly, I have to ask, and you definitely foreshadowed this with the this or that types of questions we asked. Seeing pictures online of you and Will recording. I don't know if Runner and I'm Sorry would be potentially part of a new record, but are you willing to share I mean, this isn't really official. There seems like there's a new Hovvdy record on the horizon. Is that true?
Yeah, for sure. It's coming.
Nice.
Now, this is something, if you want to cut out, or you don't even have to tell us, or you're maybe willing to share it. Is the new record kind of within overall a similar sound and production as those two singles, or are you even taking a different approach?
Yeah, same exact approach. Same team, same studio. I think, this is for like another podcast, but I think the next Hovvdy record, I think I mentioned it feeling like our best one yet. I think we're getting like back to our roots in some ways, which is really exciting. I think, that's
awesome.
It's going to be good. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, man. All right. So Charlie, if you're ready, you want to talk about each track on Imaginary People?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. You haven't quit on us yet, and we're really thankful for that.
We're chilling.
All right. First up, we got Daisy.
I drive my big wheel, long highways, wide awake real. Talk is important to me.
So Daisy is a really great opening track. Starting in with drums, acoustic guitar, and piano helps kind of set the tone for the album. I love how you follow the melody with the piano. You do that a few times on the album, but it's a really nice approach. It's just really beautiful how it all works together. My favorite moment, though, has to be the vocal melody and cadence in the. I am calling it a bridge, actually, of the song, but like
Oh, cool.
the last part of this. So, can you talk about writing that part specifically and how it fit into this song?
Yeah. So, Daisy was one that I've like had loosely in the bag for a few years. I wrote a handful of songs. Like a lot of my songs, I write this way, where I like the piano part was the first thing that I wrote. So like that melody, that vocal melody, you know, was there as a piano melody before I added the vocals to it. And I usually just end up keeping the piano melody there because I do like that doubling effect. But yeah, that last section came super, super late, honestly. I like, we had that big instrumental section used to be totally blank. And then I was always kind of humming this melody that was kind of like a counter melody to the progression, and it was a little more like rhythmically delivered, and it felt really good, but I wasn't sure if it needed vocals there. But I ended up just giving it a shot, and yeah, it became like one of my favorite parts of the record. But yeah, I think I recorded that vocal part like, you know, like long into like the mixing phase of the record.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So my question kind of had to do with the melody combined with the piano, but because it is an approach that you do take multiple times throughout the record. But actually I want to ask a different question, because hearing more stuff as you shared throughout the interview and stuff. Well, first off, before I ask my question, love the big wheel reference. Brings me back. And like so nostalgic. But this seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of a love song about your wife. Would that potentially, or it doesn't matter if it is or not, but a lot of your songs are relationship and friendship driven. Do you find that writing these friendship or relationship driven songs is a really helpful tool for you to process, or do you just do it because that's what's going on in your life? Like, how do you view that in terms of managing those relationships and thinking through them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like real therapeutic to, you know, dive into those dynamics in songs. I do like there are definitely moments in my songwriting where it's like pretty clearly it's like, you know, about like my wife. If you know me, you know, like if you know details about my life, you can read into it and say like, oh, like that's personal versus like that this might be fictional, you know. But yeah, honestly, kind of I do this a lot in songs where like maybe the beginning section will kind of exist in its own world, and then it kind of travels to like a new time and space content wise. Like that first part honestly is about like traveling, and like that like drive my big wheel is kind of, I'm actually talking about driving like a van and just like trying to like get home safe, and like, you know, I think about that a lot. I like to travel. I like to drive, and like touring is always, I really love it. It's also like really scary, and I'm always really thankful to like get somewhere safely. So like I always try to like, you know, at the end of every like 8-hour drive, and I really do like love to drive, like, but we'll get to the spot and I'll just be like, yo, like we made it. You know, like let's all take a moment to like be thankful that we're here, you know.
That's cool.
but yeah, so that song starts there, and then kind of is like a little bit like abstract, kind of stream of consciousness stuff, and then it kind of lands in this like more visceral image in the end, you know.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Next up, we have September.
They said I could not do this. They said, but I could try. I tell myself I'll prove it. I'll show them again. Oh yeah, I'll show them.
So this is such a smooth song. I love your musical approach with the open chords. There's a simple song structure and chord structure as well, but it all just works together to create this really perfect moment. I'm always struck by the lyrics for this song. The song seems to be talking about people doubting you and your constant response of trying to prove them wrong or yourself right, one or the other.
Right.
You also made a really beautiful music video for the track, which was directed by Eric Gatling. I especially
Right.
loved the shots of you running. So, how did the specific idea for the music video come about for you in light of the lyrics and themes?
Yeah, I mean, I always want like music videos to just, you know, fit the like energy of the song, and for that one I had the like loose idea of just like, let's get out and like this bright kind of vibrant setting, and like I'll just like run a lot. You know, like we honestly like didn't put a lot of thought into it. We just like oh, like, you know, the label needs a video for this one. They want it to like be the single, like let's get out there and like shoot a music video and like try to make it like feel like the music, which I think we did.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So as Andrew said, the song feels like a song about songwriting and following one's dreams to be a musician. If so, I love the double meaning in the line, I'll orchestrate it. My assumption is this has to do with you specifically, maybe I'm wrong, and others doubting your music and that it will turn into anything. And my main question kind of has to do with the last line of each verse or section, which is, I'll show them again. And the again part of the line is what like really grabs my attention, like showing you've already kind of proven yourself, but you're going to prove yourself again. And I was wondering, does that have anything to do with the relationship between Hovvdy and this new project, and how you're kind of out to prove that Hovvdy wasn't some fluke and you can do it all over again? Or am I reading way too hard into this?
I don't know about that last part, but it definitely, like, I think, well, to be clear, I've had like so much support like from my, you know, family and friends. I think where I'm coming from is more so like that kind of like that self-consciousness, like I just, you know, I can almost like projecting like doubts, like from others onto yourself, like surely, like, you know, like surely like my parents or surely like my stepdad is like has his doubts about like me and my career in music, you know. And I think that a lot of creative folks, a lot of like young people experience that, like, you know, anyone that's like chasing something that isn't, you know, financially viable or like just feels like a real dice roll, like I think you just, unless you're just totally like blissed out and not, I don't know, like not self-critical or like not self-conscious, I think you're probably carrying a lot of that weight. And I think the song is about like, you know, like the show them again part, I think is just like each like, you know, success in music, it really can be such a slow burn. especially for like, that's how that it's definitely been that way for me and for Hovvdy. It's just like a real like gentle incline in terms of like making it something that is real and like can be a job for us. So, you know, each little like level up feels like, you know, an achievement, but there's always that next thing. And, you know, actually, you know, real success does still feel so far away. So it's like, you know, I'll show them and do it, you know.
That's
just pumping
cool.
myself up. Yeah.
Awesome. Next up, we have the third track, Madison.
The time we found out why it happened, you could not see it through her. You had it written all over you.
So the song structure for this song is awesome and super unique. It has 3 different sections in it. None of them repeat except, I guess, the repetition within each section itself. I love how unique that makes the song feel. It kind of feels like you can't get a good feel for the song until you've listened maybe a few times because there's not that repetition. So can you talk
Right.
about how you wrote the song and what made you choose the song structure for Madison?
Yeah. So the song started with just that first part and then the chorus. And initially, and I had that first verse and that chorus for a pretty long time, and I had always been like wrestling with like, you know, should there just be like another verse and then like go say it, like for it to like go back to that A section and then come back to the chorus. And I think I tried it, and it would have been like, you know, like really long and just like kind of dragging. And so yeah, similar to Daisy, honestly, just like I ended up kind of falling into, it was after we recorded the track, and I was just listening, and that whole section we had this like real gentle like outro, and I was just like, and that whole section just came to me. But yeah, it's interesting that nothing repeats. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, that's how it happened.
There you go.
So, Charlie, I don't know if you have these moments listening to record. Are you a big record listener?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know you have a lot of yeah. Well, not all people who make music listen to music, but
that's true.
There's always on a record that for me at least, that I end up loving, there's this moment, usually a song or a part, where I'll be like, there's this ramp up before that part where I'm loving it, everything's going well, and then there's this song or this part where I'm like, okay, shoot, this album is going to be different, like it's going to be special. And obviously you don't know because you haven't finished the record. Sometimes that might be the last track, but for me, listening to this record, Madison was that song where I love Daisy and love September, and I was like, oh my gosh, is he going to keep just pulling out these bangers? And Madison just like floored me and made me realize there's not going to be a single song I don't love on this album. And I ended up being right about that.
Yeah.
But
thank you.
Anyways, no problem. After hearing so the quiet bridge chorus, I don't know. Yeah, you and I were sharing in our inability to label. I don't know what it's really called because the song is so unique. This is the first time Mr. Hovvdy's introduced. I cannot help but make some kind of connection with Heavy Lifter, whether it's there or not. But regardless, this word heavy seems to be a word that you've connected with. And what do you feel like about that word or descriptor has kind of been something you've gravitated towards? What about it do you think you've connected with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think a lot about like the weight people carry, you know, and like, especially if you're like an empathetic person, just like how, if you like really feel things, like like I think about like my wife, like she's the type person who like just really, can like see something terrible that's happening in the world and like really feels it and like really carries it, and then there are other people that like, are able to kind of like brush it off. So I like really empathize with those types of people, and like I like really admire people that like will open themselves up to like experiencing like the the heaviness and like the weightiness of things, because I think that's really generous, and like it means that you're like connecting and like you're like there for others. And so yeah, there's that element, and then there's just like, specifically about like Heavy Lifter, I loved the double meaning of like you could picture like a weightlifter, like a power lifter, or you could picture like a sad old man, that's just like sensitive and thinks about his granddaughters a lot.
Yeah, awesome. Next up we have Courage.
We'll see all of our friends, a song you made up. It takes courage, a poem. It takes courage, you saw a glimmer in my eye.
So Courage is definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. I really love the melody and cadence throughout the song, but my favorite part of the song is the chord structure. It's just the perfect chord structure for the song. It flows kind of in and out of slightly more unique chord patterns. For me, can you talk about how you came up with the chord structure for this song, and how when you found kind of that sweet spot for the chord structure for a song?
Yeah, I think this was like the first song that I wrote kind of when I decided to make this record. I just like, it felt like a kind of a new, like a step in a different direction that felt different than like the Hovvdy stuff. In terms of the chord structure, I think what makes it stand apart from other songs is it's like dissonance. Like I usually don't really like dissonance. Like I don't write a lot in like minor keys. I don't know if it's a minor key, but it feels that way to me. And I just kind of like stumbled on this melody that like there's like, it's kind of tense, but then it like finds some relief, which I think is like a classic thing to do, and a classic thing that like good songwriters do, but like I just haven't ever done that before. So yeah, I don't know, it's a song that I was maybe a little bit unsure. Like I knew it had a place on the record, but I wasn't sure if it would be like a standout track. But I shared it with some people and they were like, this is like my favorite thing you've done. So I was like, oh, crazy.
Is it today you released a music video for it? Did I see it today or yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah. Yesterday.
So I haven't had the chance to watch that yet, but I'm sure it's good.
Oh yeah, it's honestly like probably my favorite video I've done. Just the way it looks. We did it on 16 millimeter film. My buddy Eric Gatling, he did it, and we shot it like a long time ago. It was before the record was done, but he just like had this extra film and had heard the demos and was like, hey, like let's shoot a video. And I was like, all right, like I don't have a record deal yet. Like I don't, at that point I was just like just getting started, but I wasn't going to miss the opportunity. So but yeah, it came out really just beautiful, like looking.
It's ballsy to make a music video on a demo. I love that.
Yeah, well, we had just like, he had heard the demos and he knew that me and Evan were working. So that song honestly was just like the one that sounded the best at that stage of the process, like in that really early stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of your songs on this record and in general, I think, deal with changes and transitions and kind of growing older. And Courage is a good example of this. Another attribute you talk about in Courage, other than courage, is pride. You sing in the verses, it takes courage. And then the chorus you sing, you saw a glimmer in my eye when I said I blew up all my pride. And I was wondering, is there any correlation for you in between losing pride and gaining courage? I think the two can kind of be mistaken or viewed as synonymous. Like someone who's prideful is like confident, they're like courageous, or like willing to go like over the top. But sometimes I do think there's this distinction between the two. Not that someone who's prideful can't be courageous. Is that something you were aiming for, or am I just kind of making too many connections here?
No, yeah, I think that's, pretty spot on. I think I do see like pride as like something that usually does get in the way, but maybe is like a necessary element of like our personalities. And like, yeah, I'd like to try to toe the line of like, being confident and like being, feeling like either like pumping myself up or pumping other people up without it, without getting too ahead of ourselves. And like, and I do think that like that, I love that imagery of like blowing up your pride as like freeing yourself up to, get better and progress. Because like so much, especially like in bands, like with collaborating or in relationships, like if you do just like, pride can be such a barrier to connection and to like just becoming a better person or a better musician, so yeah, I like that image a lot.
Next up we have June.
I can, and I can say a little while, I'll stay a little while.
So I really love how some of these songs on the record really rely on the piano, and June is a great example of that, as the piano follows the melody and really just kind of carries the music for the track. So can you talk about writing the piano for this song and how you ended up recording piano for the record?
Yeah, so June I wrote, that was another piano song, just existed exactly how you hear that piano and that melody is like, the first thing that I did for the song. And yeah, we recorded it. A lot of these songs, I knew that I wanted the record to be piano heavy, and my mother-in-law has this like Steinway Grand from like the 1800s.
Oh wow.
And it sits in this, big room with like really tall ceilings, and like it's just like a gorgeous sounding and feeling kind of place to be. And I have been playing that piano and like been in love with that piano for a lot of years, but had never recorded it other than just like demos. But yeah, so me and Evan, we went out there and got to record that piano. And I think that it, comes across a lot in songs like Daisy, June, like really the songs where it feels big, like it's usually that piano.
A few things. First, some of the lyrics remind me so much of this. I made a tiny leap with the big wheels thing. I thought I was 100% sure I got the big wheels right. I was so off. This is a bigger leap. This reminds me so much of Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty, especially in the Thanksgiving Peanuts episode. Is that like?
Yeah, that's like not even in my brain at all.
Yep, there you go. Yep.
Damn. I feel like I should look. I got my notebook here. I got to look at those lyrics. I'm curious what you're talking about.
So you know what? We're down this road. I'm just going to quickly. So first off, Peppermint Patty's the only one in like the Peanuts stuff that calls Charlie Brown Chuck.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's so funny.
And in the Thanksgiving one, so she comes over Charlie Brown's house and you sing, I'll take my friend, take her home, feed her something, help how I can. And I can stay a little while, but they need to go to the Thanksgiving thing. I don't know why you would write a song about this, but don't call me Chuck. I barely know you. Hold back a punch. Peppermint Patty's kind of aggressive and she punches Charlie Brown at times. But then the ending makes literally no sense. If at all Charlie Brown focused. But okay. I knew I wasn't going to be right, but it had too many connections for me to not. But coincidence.
That's a fun connection, you know.
So on a totally different note, and I can guarantee you didn't write the song about my grandma. So her name is June.
Oh wow!
And she passed away a few years ago, shortly after my wedding. And this song, especially mainly really not the Peppermint Patty Charlie Brown part, but the last verse or the last section of the song kind of like reminds me of her, and it's really cool and special. And so I think it's just cool how with you using so many names without the record, it does provide this personal nature to it where people either whose name that is or who are connected to people with those names can almost feel an even closer connection to the songs. Not that you need those names, but there's this personal nature, which is so cool. What was the thought process for you having so many names? And are you like aware, or are you at all cognizant of that dynamic of people and connecting with the name side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of, you know, I really do like write a lot of songs about like kind of like inserting myself into this like imaginary situation with a person. And I don't really know like why I do that, but I think it's mostly because I know that people can connect to those, people connect to relationships and like, and like I really am like, you know, very like honestly like feeling for those fictional worlds, you know, like but yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like usually I think for June.
Oh, it also could be the month. That too. Like
no. I'm glad that you caught that it was a name. It totally I think of it as a name for sure. But yeah, and the Chuck bit, that's just me. Like there's only a few people that call me Chuck. I never would like. That's just kind of a funny verse. I like that verse. It's a little kind of like an unusual attitude for me to have. Like I'm gonna punch somebody. Never is the case. But Chuck is such a. That there are some people I love that call me Chuck, but you know we gotta be on that level.
Yeah, definitely. I almost started out this question calling you Chuck, but I didn't know how tense of an issue this was. So I did. It would have been funny maybe, or you would have been like, screw this.
No, yeah. There's worse nicknames. I love my name, but it comes with like a long list of nicknames.
True. That is true. All right. Next up, we have the song Swirl.
Bigger, better, real life. Such a rare time. We could retry. Listen to everything you said. Swirling in my head. Somewhere quiet.
So Swirl, it's just a really perfect song. You do such a great job on the record of making it so every song sounds very cohesive with the album, but no two songs sound the same. I love how the instrumentals really do create a swirl effect in the track itself. Was this intentional? And how did you go about kind of getting the right musical sound for this song?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta credit Evan. We recorded this one out in Mississippi, so this was one that was done like in more of like a home environment, and we just got like a crazy vibe with the acoustic guitars. Honestly, like, I could send you just just the acoustic guitars alone are like kind of spooky and like have this like, well, we did them real like roomy. And there's probably like 4 layers, and I'm sure they're like hard panned, and it just like had this like real natural energy to it that there's like a little tinge of darkness for sure in this song. I'm trying to remember. I know we played with like some Leslie stuff, but I don't know if it made it into the song. But it might have. You know what a Leslie is? It's like that like spinning speaker.
Oh,
That
yeah.
you have with like, it's kind of like an organ type instrument. Like a Hammond organ would usually have like a Leslie is like the sound device. And there's a pedal that like you use to like trigger how slow or how fast the horn. It's like a horn style speaker. And so it creates that like woo, 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 and it's spooky stuff. But I think we might have used that maybe even on the vocals a little bit. But yeah, it's just it's a real thick song,
Yeah, this song slaps. It's so damn heavy, and no pun intended there. But it's kind of crazy how not most of your tracks aren't heavy, but you're able to really create these deep feelings and this really like driving forces just on the acoustic a lot of the time, which is very impressive. I think the first line that really sticks out to me on the record so far in terms of the title Imaginary People is the line bigger, better in real life. It's been kind of tough planning questions because we're like, is this like about him, or is this about somebody else, or is this like a made up story, or is this real? But
good.
Yeah, but this line in particular, at least it definitely references that dynamic of there's real life and there's not real life, almost like there's this fantasy aspect of things. I'm not well versed in production, but I do love the production aspects of the record. I think if you listen to the record quickly and aren't paying attention, you think, oh, it's mostly just like acoustic drums, vocals, maybe some stack stuff. But when you really are listening, there's so many different elements that are buried or like kind of subtle that really help build up the songs and give them bones and give them a lot of depth. And one aspect on Swirl, I think, is the vocal effects, because you mainly do harmonies throughout the record. There aren't, it does, at least it seems to me like there's not a ton of heavier vocal effects, but I have no idea, but something's going on with Swirl especially when you sing Swirl, the word itself. Are you able to share what's going on there with the vocals?
Yeah. For that one, we used some like pretty aggressive auto-tune. A lot of time when I'm like making a demo, I'll play with auto-tune. I think it's like really fun. It's a fun tool, and like especially when you're just kind of like it's a fun like writing tool. But yeah, for this one, I think it was a case of like I did the scratch vocals, and in the scratch vocal takes, because I recorded all the vocals myself in this room. We did all the like arrangements and all the music we did. I did with Evan like at the studio or whatever. But so I just like, I think for that one, I love to do this thing where you just there's a lot of layers and like 2 or 3 of them, you'll throw some like aggressive kind of distorted like auto tune, and sometimes I like to like really bury it so you don't really notice it. But with this one, I liked the idea of it feeling like a different, like it was for the choruses, it was coming from a different place, like kind of like bubbling up from the instrumental versus it feeling like the lead vocal, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Next up, we have Scott.
Missing my friend Scott, loved him a whole lot. Don't know what you've got till it's gone. He moved away, I was with him that day. He moved away, never made time, never made time, never made time, never made time, never made time.
So this is a short and simplistic track for sure, but it just adds another layer to the album. It sounds as if it was recorded in a bedroom, and it's very minimalistic in that approach. The lyrics do remind me of one of the new Hovvdy singles, Runner, where you sing,
cool.
say, take your time, don't give it away, compared with on this track where you sing, never made time. In these lines, the verbs of taking, giving, and making time seem to communicate that there's an intentionality with time and what we choose to do with it. So this is a personal question. You don't have to answer it. But what is the most difficult part of the reality of time for you?
Yeah, damn, that's a heavy one. I honestly, yeah, that song is about a friend of mine, who I won't name, but
Scott.
and yeah, Scott. We'll call him Scott. and I don't think Scott knows that this song is about him, but yeah, I don't know. I think everyone can like relate to like, you know, a friendship that you didn't like nourish enough, or, you know, like, and it could be, you know, personal, it could be family, it could be, you know, like a creative relationship. And yeah, like just, I think everyone can relate with like feeling busy and like not making time, but you know, we also always know like how much time we really do have, you know. It's like, I feel like half the time when we say like, oh, yesterday I was so busy, but like low key you had like 4 hours where you just weren't doing anything, you know. And I don't think we should be too hard on ourselves, but sometimes you just gotta like own up to the fact that like you could have been there more, and like, and you regret it, you know. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, I just was thinking through with like the names being like obviously not real names. When you wrote a song like this, did you ever think like, okay, now do I have any friends that are actually named Scott who might take offense to this and think that it's about like, are you like thinking through all the potential people you know as you're making these names?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like usually it's most of the names are like I've never even met someone named that before. And like obviously like I've met Scott's, but like some of the more like Deborah, like she's like so fictional.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I do think about it. And the one name that is actually not fiction is Madison. But the song's not really about him. I just reference him in that last part. But yeah, he was my childhood best friend. That's the only one that's like, you know, not made up. So shout out Madison.
Shout out. So the first time listening to this song, I'm waiting for the drums to come in. I chill for a little bit. Don't feel like they're coming in. I'm waiting for the drums to come in. I'm chilling a little bit, waiting for the drums to come in. And the song's over, and I'm like, why didn't the drums come in? It made perfect sense. Like it's such a heavy, intense. Oh, not intense, but it's like a heavier up seemingly upbeat song. But the more I listen to it, the more I realize how like pop punk this song is. Like, it's not at all like the rest of those songs. And I feel like if you did build it up, it would have been a bit too abnormal maybe for the rest of the tracks to fit in as well. Was that a part of the simplicity of keeping the track kind of bare bones, or if not, what was your thought process with that?
Yeah, I mean, I rarely like write a song using that like kind of finger picking style of guitar. And I think just like by virtue of it starting out that way, it felt like it wanted to just be like an acoustic song. And then I always just, I love like that push and pull of like the vocal melody is like pretty like hard. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Like in term, like it almost reminds me of like Juice World or something, like that kind of like that like emo rap like pop punk style.
Definitely.
I thought it was fun I love to like exist like in the weird like in between of like, you know, a real folk like arrangement. Like, you know, we recorded those guitars we made, like we did it super late at night, so it was like dead silent, but you could hear like the like cicadas in Mississippi just like buzzing. And it was like that sensation of like it's so quiet that it's like really loud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we were going for.
That's really cool. Next up we have track Deborah.
Stories no one could make up. This night's almost over. Had to try hard to not stay too long, even through the backyard.
So this is another one of my favorite tracks on the album. The addition of background orchestration is perfect, and I love the almost abrupt ending to the song. I did want to take this song to just talk about the drums on the album. Nate was kind of mentioning drums for the last song, but this whole album, the drums have been very prevalent in creating kind of the sound for the album as well. So can you talk about the process of writing drums for this track specifically, as well as what part of the writing process you usually start thinking of drum grooves and rhythms?
Yeah, usually it's like so it's like kind of the first thing that we record, or it might be like the first or second thing that we record. But it's usually the thing that I am like least prepared for. Like typically like going, because I just don't like, I don't even have a drum set like at my house. Like me and Will like have a storage unit where we keep some gear, and like that's where the drums live. I don't have space yet. So yeah, it's funny because like I think because I am probably most comfortable at like with drums, I kind of end up saving it to just be like, I'll figure it out when I go in, you know, which is fun. Like it's always like a really fun, satisfying process. And like, I usually just try to like keep it simple and like keep it like a nice like heavy pocket. And I always like have in mind like bass, which I don't play bass. Ben Littlejohn, shout out Ben, he's like the, you know, he's the honorary third member of Hovvdy and the honorary second member of my band. He's just like, he's always killing it for us. But yeah, so just like I kind of like know that, you know, I don't have to do too much as a drummer. I just want it to like sound like thick and like intentional. And then just try to like fold into the song versus it, you know, be too much of like a standout thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I just this is probably like, I'm sorry, I'm like tired, and this is probably like a dumb thing to say. If you added a third member to Hovvdy, like Ben, would you have to add a third V? And
Yes, that's why we can't do it, because
that's why you can't
too
do
many
it.
V's. Yeah,
It would be Hovvdy.
yeah,
So the I'm sorry, I apologize.
that was good.
I should keep a filter. The lyrics and melodies on this track are some of my favorite on the record. I think you're able to capture lyrically something really nostalgic, but also something really nuanced. Like those emotions are complicated, and you're able to capture it in such a simple and honest way. How was the process of writing these lyrics for you? Was it something that you kind of just threw up on the page and it was like good to go, or was this something you had to work through to make it all work together so well?
Yeah, I think honestly, this is probably the oldest of, like, in this sort of batch of songs that are like about characters that are fictional. Like, I think Deborah was like probably the first one that I made. I don't even know when it came on, but when I wrote it, probably like 20, maybe even like 2016, 2017.
Oh wow.
Probably 2017.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was really fun, and it felt good to like write this character about this person that I just like really admire, like Deborah. Like, she's like, you're so cool, like you're so like, I don't know, just totally fictional.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then just like bringing in like, like an experience or like a moment that feels like, tender, like even like for this person, you have that friend that like you really look up to, but like they have their own struggles, and like, I don't know.
Yeah. And there's almost feeling of like not wanting to be a burden to them, even though you look up to them so much.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next up, we have Rusty.
Always Mr. Heavy, be careful. September came early this year, you say to me. I'm feeling better in the fresh air, you say to me. Tell me that you can't stay. Tell me that you can't.
So this song just has a way of making me smile. It's really such a happy sounding song, and I really love the musical direction in this song. The vocals are also incredible for this track. For simple sounding music, you always kind of have a way of making sure there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of really cool vocal parts on this track, like your harmonies, as well as what you do on the "Tell Me That You Can't Say Over It" line. Do you mind sharing how the vocals for Rusty came into being?
Yeah, I think like this was another one where I just wrote that piano.
Mhm.
It started out just as a piano piece, and then I like transposed it to guitar, and it felt natural to like make it more into like a country song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the only song where I've ever had kind of like almost like a vocal round, like a call and response type
Yeah.
thing in the chorus. And
Yeah.
I have sort of like a love-hate relationship with it, because I can't like play that song by myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So like I don't know, maybe one day when I do it live, I'll have someone else singing, or I can like get the crowd to sing along or something. But yeah. And then I also have to shout out Ben. He played bass on this one too. He played bass on the whole record, but his bass line on this one is so great. He just like creates so much movement. I honestly meant to shout out him for September, because you mentioned that song is just two chords the whole time, but like his bass line just like gives so much move. He really does like bring so much movement to like a chord progression, and
Yeah.
I can give him like a song that's just 2 parts and he'll create like 6 parts.
Wow.
You know, and then it's always like really
That's
tasteful
awesome.
and subtle. But yeah, if you listen closely, like in the verses, I don't know the notes, but he basically plays 2 different progressions in the verses when I'm just playing one. So he just pulls, he just like pulls the like the harmonics or whatever, like just in a totally different place, and it's really, really cool.
That's awesome.
So we've mentioned it. The piano plays a huge role in the record, and in the song, which I love. I think in the indie scene, not that there's so many different indie scenes, but in the overall in the indie world, I would say synths are kind of taking over, which is great because synths are awesome. But I love the refreshing piano takes you have. The song overall feels like it's dealing with 2 friends. One's moving away from Rusty, but Rusty feels dependent upon this person, as the other person's trying to help Rusty be independent, and Rusty's sad. They're not
Yeah.
doing everything they can to stay. And the line Andrew mentioned, "Tell me that you can stay over it," is repeated just about as much, if not more, than any other line on the record. What, maybe it was just a musical decision, but what made you want to emphasize this line or repeat this line in particular?
Yeah, it's kind of about like a character that's really struggling with like maybe something a little more serious, like less everyday, but like something like addiction or something like, you know, that is much harder to like get on top of. And that, yeah, that sort of feeling of like, yeah, I'm doing better now, today's a good day, just like, but like you can stay, you know, it's like almost like a person that's dealing with something, starting to like take the steps in the right direction, but like still feels pulled back into like a darker place. So just, you know, being there for them. And yeah.
All right, next up we have Sadie.
Take a picture. Someday you'll leave town. I've been going up and down. Sometimes I'm proud. I've been going up and down. Sometimes I'm proud. Before the hard part is over, I'll keep it up.
So I love the guitar sound for this song. I really feel like the song is carried by the guitars. The piano lead part in the song is another amazing part of this album as well. The vocals on the chorus stand out as well because they're unique for this record as you kind of go up into that range. What led you into singing the chorus that way?
Yeah, I think I wrote this one on piano. Honestly, I think I wrote this one after a tour we did with Soccer Mommy, and I was like, I think I was
Yeah.
vibing with that, like with her style. She's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, like this one felt like sort of almost like a nod to like some Soccer Mommy stuff. But yeah, I think it was just like I decided on the key, and I always knew I wanted to like, you know, when you're working on like a chord progression and you have like a vocal melody, either it's kind of when it's in that like kind of in that like mid-range zone, you can either go like high and it's like maybe too high, or you can go like low and it's maybe too low. You can you can like shift up the song. Sometimes it's hard with a song that has a lot of range, which I think this one just like has like a bigger range vocally. So
Yeah.
I felt like going up felt better, you know. That classic like lift of the chorus.
So this song at first glance seems somewhat simple, but there's a ton going on when you listen closely, especially on the production side of things. What are some of your favorite production elements from this track?
I'm trying to remember. I think like initially this song was gonna be like kind of like a slow core, like heavy song. almost like 9 a.m. is, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like the record needed that. It's also just like pretty long.
Yeah.
Like it's one of my like longer songs. So if I made it really slow, it was gonna be like, felt like it would be too long. So I just played around. I was in the studio and I just like played this like groove, like this like more of like a just like a pop groove over it.
Yeah.
And it felt really fresh, and it was gave it a little more pace.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the drums a lot. That was kind of like the one element of the song that felt like a real like curveball for the arrangement. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I think there's like some bouncy keyboard stuff in the choruses that I really like. Yeah.
Awesome. Next up, we have something that Andrew's never been called. We have Winner.
Shots.
Just kidding.
Shots.
You're a winner, Andrew.
Thank you. Well, as far as Winner goes, damn, it's such a great track. I think the melody and chord structure over you singing "You Are a Winner" gets stuck in my head all the time. The chord structure, once again, is so unique. The third chord in that pattern really kind of sounds really cool and really unique. So for all of my music nerds out there, do you remember what that chord is and what specifically the chord structure is? And what kind of made you decide to go with that chord for the song?
Man, I wish I knew. And honestly, like I have my, I don't know where my guitar is, but even if I had, I would have to have a piano set up, and I don't right now. But that was another one where I just wrote it on piano. And it was just like a simple, I usually play in like fifths. I usually like typically like in my left hand, I'll be playing like just the fifth of the chords. And I usually like kind of bounce like between my like pinky and my thumb to kind of create that like walking bass line. And then I usually just like write the melody with my right hand. And then that's sort of like the core of the song. And that's definitely how it was for Winner. And then I add the guitars, which I think because of the tuning that I use, the open tuning, which is also like there's a lot of fifths in that tuning. I think that's where I think that's probably how I achieve like a more like kind of my unique, or like Hovvdy's like unique kind of like resonance with like the notes ringing out. I think it's all about just those open strings ringing out and kind of merging like with the pianos and the keys, like that style. It's just like a lot of like resonance that I think sounds good.
It sounds great.
Thanks. Yeah, but that third chord, I wish I knew, but I don't.
That's fine. I can do the work and figure it out, but I just
feel free to
let you tell me.
Yeah, they can DM me. I try to respond to those types of questions.
So funny story. I'm a high school teacher, and I coach baseball, which was the first sport at our school this year that kind of went back to somewhat normal. We actually had games and stuff, which was cool. And we had to drive separately to games because we weren't all allowed to go on a bus. So the day I found out about your record, I started listening to it on the way to the game, listened to it on the way back, and I finished it up playing in the bathroom while I was showering. And just for some context on our season, we had 4 games, a shortened season, and we got mercy ruled in every game. Now, for those who don't know what a mercy rule is basically where the umps who are kind of in charge of the game, they stop the game because it's going so bad for one team. They're getting beat by so much. They're showing mercy on that team by saying it's just better if we quit. It's just better if we stop.
Yeah.
So all 4 games we got mercy rule. And so I'm listening to
Did
the
you
record.
get fired as the coach, Nate?
Let's just say for some reason I couldn't find any of my checks in the mail. They just didn't show up.
We used to call it run ruling, which like when you would like, because I was usually on the other side where we would be run ruling teams.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't that, I was pretty good, but I played on a really good team. But yeah, mercy is like that's even harsher.
Yeah,
Mercy
it's like
rule. It sounds like Game of Thrones type
exactly.
shit.
Yeah.
Like it is like accurate, like it is an act of mercy, but by calling it mercy, it's almost less merciful, if that makes any sense.
It's like
a little degrading.
Really degrading. Yeah. So I'm sorry.
anyways,
at least baseball's fun. Go ahead.
Definitely. No, and we had a wicked fun season. And baseball's the type of game too, where like, of course it's about baseball, but baseball creates this just such a cool environment that if you're in that environment, being able to hang around, goof off, like make jokes, cheer on your team, like you're able to have a great atmosphere even if you suck.
Yeah.
But anyways, so this is after one of the mercy rule games. I'm listening to the end of the album, and so this song comes on in the shower. And I just imagined, like, what if I was like just in the shower going, "You are a winner," after being mercy ruled for the 4th straight time or whatever. I just thought it was kind of poetic. But is there any connection for you between winter and September in terms of needing to prove others your own capabilities, which I feel like is September, versus trying to prove to others of their capabilities, which I feel like is winter?
Yeah, I mean, I like, I think both are like strong currents and like, you know, what's important to me. Not so much like proving myself, but just like proving to myself.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't really have like a chip on my shoulder, like, but I do, you know, want to like achieve my goals, or I do want to like be a good person. And like a lot of that is just, you know, rallying yourself to get there. I find it a little easier to like to sing about, to write about, and think about like wanting to lift other people up. And I don't know, I think people just need that, like just everybody does, like I do, my friends do, my family does, like I just, that to me like is like the whole purpose of writing, like making music is just the thought that it can make somebody feel better is like enough to encourage me to keep doing it as long as I can. Like that's really what it's all about. And sometimes it is more subtle, and sometimes it's like a song where the chorus is "You are a winner," you know?
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Trick.
Every time when you laugh out loud, I feel alright.
So this song really starts to wind the album down to its inevitable conclusion. I love the vocal cadence for the song. It's super smooth and natural, and I love it. There's a really beautiful ending instrumental that I also love. And as you can tell, I love a lot about the song and the entire record. Another thing I love is the song structure. It's just 2 verses as the song starts and ends with the word trickery. The second time trickery comes in it enters the instrumental chorus from earlier. So how the hell did you come up with the song structure, you mastermind?
Damn. Thanks a lot. Again, it's really just like trying to be really simple. This was one where I think I landed on slightly like a more like resonant, or not resonant, like dissonant kind of minor, like kind of spooky feeling, which is never my like first instinct. So just kind of like, but it felt good. I think this was one where I just like picked up the guitar and like started writing as I was like singing along with this progression. And yeah, it kind of just has like this darkness about it that I knew would like serve a role on like a record. But yeah, I'm trying to think about the progression. I feel like the like beginning with trickery and ending with trickery was definitely a happy accident. Like it just is like that's just how it happened. And I liked that sort of like book ending. And then the instrumental, I think I ended up adding, there's like some flute, there's a handful of things that I chipped away. I think that last instrumental was probably something I was working on up to like the very last minute.
Wow.
I think I just let it sit like without much lead instrumentation for a while, and then like literally like the final week of mixing, I was just like did like an overdub of that like kind of flute. There's like some bouncy kind of like tape flute stuff that I added, I think.
So the first verse is interesting, how you kind of transition between a line within the way you say it within the song. So you kind of cut halfway or partial way through a line and finish it later. And I feel like you haven't done that often, at least on this record. What was the thought process behind that approach for you? Was it simply like you kind of didn't have enough time to say the words you wanted to say, or was it intentional?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna see if I can pull this one up in my notebook, because usually it's just a matter of I like how a one line can maybe be taken one way, but then the final, but really it's a continual sentence. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like trickery. I like I sing it like trickery. I'll promise. I'll show you my best impression of a person who succeeds. So it's like, it kind of creates like these weird sort of transitional meanings within it. But yeah, really it's just having fun. Like, I don't really know. I'm always trying to fit it into like a certain rhythm and a certain melody that feels most natural. And then just like filling words in with, and a lot of the time it's just stream of consciousness. Like, I never like write just lyrics, you know.
Awesome. Last up, we have the closing track, 9 a.m.
I was picturing you in your old house. I wake up at 9 a.m. now. I wake up at 9 a.m.
So every time the song starts, it kind of gets me because it jumps in so fast that it almost feels like my music has skipped ahead somehow and that I missed something. I really love it though. As the shortest track on the album, it's such an interesting choice for a closing track, to me at least, maybe because I've become accustomed to the really long, drawn out closing track that happens pretty often. But in its own right, it's a really great closer. The song's slow tempo and almost dreamy sound is great to bring the album to its close. One of my favorite parts of the whole record is the mini instrumental in kind of the middle of the song. What's the instrument that's leading kind of that instrumental there, and what led you to choose it for this track?
Yeah, so that is like a mellotron flute sound. I think I usually I have like two keyboards. One is a microKORG XL Plus, and I am specific there because that particular microKORG has this. It's called like it has like a bank of sounds. They're like 70s vintage is like the name of like the bank, and it has this really amazing tape flute and tape string sounds that they just mimic like mellotron stuff, but
yeah,
the particular one on this microKORG is probably like my most used keyboard sound in like all of my recordings forever, like live too.
Yeah.
And I think that one though is, I also have a Nord, which I usually just use for like electric piano and stuff like that. But I have all these like mellotron samples on that keyboard as well, and I think that was one of those. But yeah, that's just like some distorted like tape flute lead stuff.
Nice.
I love that sound.
It's awesome.
So listeners won't know this, but just some background on the episode. When we reached out to Charlie for the interview and asked if he was willing to do the interview at 8:30 in the morning, he passive aggressively just sent us a song. But obviously that's a joke. So this song is secretly wicked heavy instrumentally. It hits so hard. The song's extremely dynamic despite its brevity. And actually the brevity might help enhance its dynamic nature. What was the process for the length on this track? Were there thoughts of expanding it musically or adding more lyrics, or was it were you always dead set on having this being a shorter, tighter track?
Yeah, this is another one of like the pretty old ones. And I've had a demo around for a little while. I think I like short bursts of energy, like when I'm gonna like be really heavy. I like the idea of it being really short. Whereas like if it were gonna be longer, I probably would have not gone like so hard on the arrangement. Like I think a good example of that, going back to like early Hovvdy stuff, was the song Colorful, which is on Cranberry. There's another version of that song that's called Color that is on like a split we did. I think it's on Bandcamp. It's like a 3-song thing. And so there's the first version was Color, and it was like really heavy and really short, whereas the version on Cranberry is like twice as long, but it's much softer. And I think with 9 a.m. it just felt good to be like this heavy, like short burst of energy. Kind of like a final, soft explosion before the record fizzles out.
Awesome. As we close, Charlie, we like to share our favorite track. Now we understand, I mean, I'm assuming you care deeply about each and every one of these songs. And so it might be a tough thing to do. You don't have to if you don't want to. I usually make a favorite kid joke here, but I don't really feel like doing it now. So Andrew, to give Charlie time to think of whether he would like to answer or not, and then once he decides that, if it's a yes, figure out what song it is. What's your favorite track?
So I'm going to mention 2 tracks, but there is one that I'll pick as my favorite because I'm forced to for this exercise. Literally from the moment that I started this album, like Daisy got me right away, and I've always just been very partial to that track. I think it is such a great track. But I think that almost like introduced me to the feel and the vibe of this album. I think my favorite though is actually Winner. I just really like the instrumental for it. Again, whatever that chord is, I don't know. I just like there's so much in it, and I feel like I can only appreciate Winter. The reason I mentioned Daisy, I can only appreciate Winter because of kind of the intro that Daisy gave, that Winter stands out kind of on the record for me. So I'm picking Winter as my favorite, but it's a hard choice. It's a great album. So Nate, what is your favorite?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Madison. It's a really hard decision as well, trying to pick a favorite. I really love every song. I think the reason why Madison is, from what I shared earlier about, this was my like, oh shit moment where I was like, oh shit, like this is going to be a special album. And so I have just like a very distinct memory listening to it. And also it's very descriptive in terms of like kind of that childhood memory, or that childhood friendship. And I think that nostalgia just gets me every time too. So I'm gonna go with Madison.
Damn. Thanks, y'all. Cool.
No
Yeah,
problem.
I'll shoot. I don't. It's tough. I think maybe June is my favorite. Like I think about like what songs I'm most excited to like play with the band, you know? And I wanted this record to feel like really like earnest and like organic sonically. And just feel like a band like in a big room playing together, you know? And I think we achieved that with this one. And yeah, I think that'll be my fave.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Charlie.
Of course.
Charlie, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us. You've been very generous in your time and all your information. For those who are listening to Charlie's music, please buy merch, go see shows when he goes out and plays live with Hovvdy, and also when he does the solo stuff. Go above and beyond, extra t-shirts for the whole fam.
I gotta make t-shirts. Unfortunately, the only way you can support just me is just to buy the record on Bandcamp for $7,
which is a deal.
It's a deal.
It's a
13 songs. That's like 50 cents a song, guys.
Yeah.
I was really hoping
you
would like
stream it 4,000 times a day.
That will equate to the
I'll make $10.
Yeah. Actually, to ask about that, are there any potential future plans to maybe throw it on vinyl, even if there's nothing in the groundwork? Is that a hope you have?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not to get too much into the nitty gritty of the planning, the with Hovvdy and with my stuff, but I think maybe next year I'm gonna be looking to do like a physical pressing and maybe a tour for the solo record.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew and I will pre-order 1,000%.
All right,
for sure.
Cool.
So you're guaranteed to sell 2 copies. Tell the people who are putting up that money, say, hey, I got 2 pre-orders ready.
2 pre-orders. I'm gonna email the label right now.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Charlie, and we hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks again so much for this record.
Of course, yeah. Thank you all, and I appreciate you guys having me. This was really fun.
All right, that was our Charlie Martin interview. It was a pleasure having him. He was so gracious with all of his answers and his time. So just reach out to him and thank him for his time and let him know that you enjoyed the podcast and what he was able to bring to the podcast. If you would like to hear our other podcasts, make sure that you're subscribed to the pod. That's really helpful for us to continue doing cool interviews like Charlie Martin. You can also find us on social media. You can find us at Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at LDL Pod, and you can also email us at longdistancelistening@gmail.com. And yeah, just reach out. Talk to us. We love being in contact with people about indie music in general. So follow us there, reach out. We'd love to talk. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.
Did you know that bitch Barney's just a man in a suit?